In Iran, what shameful acts are committed before giving women a ritual bath? Knowing this reason will leave you in shock. I had recently moved to Iran and was in desperate need of money. Thanks to my uncle, I was able to come to Iran for work. I was hired as a washer of the deceased. There were many morgues where I was assigned duty. I used to work alongside another woman who performed the ritual washing of the deceased, and I would assist her. The system here was different from Pakistan. Everything was done with a great deal of protocol, and I was astonished to see it all. I had performed similar work in Pakistan once or twice, but after coming here, I was utterly shocked. The way the deceased were being washed was something I had never seen before. The entire system was vastly different. My family was against this job, but I found it better than many other jobs. No one treated us disrespectfully. Rather, the families of the deceased were always cooperative and showed us great respect. I had worked in many jobs before, but every job brought me humiliation. However, since starting this job, I had faced no such issues. But I did not know that what I would witness here would leave me utterly shaken. I was around 24 years old, and my mother wanted me to get married. But I could not ruin my life by marrying so soon, especially since my father had passed away. If I got married, my younger siblings would be completely abandoned. I could not leave them helpless and build my own world. I clearly told my mother that I would not get married until I secured my siblings' future. My mother tried to explain to me many times that sacrificing my life for others was futile, because people never truly belong to anyone. But my siblings were my own, and I cared for them more than myself. That is why I gathered the courage to come to Iran. My mother was completely against sending me to Iran. It is never easy for a mother to send her daughter to another country, but she had to give in to my persistence. She had no choice but to send me off in the protection of Allah. I arrived in Iran, and thanks to my uncle, I got a job. I was hired as a washer of the deceased. However, a washer's job is to perform the ritual washing of the deceased, but that was not my duty. I only assisted the woman who washed the dead bodies, which paid me well. I was happy with this job, but what I witnessed that day is beyond words. After that, I lost all interest in the job. I decided I would return to Pakistan because I could not bear to see such things with my own eyes. What I saw sent shivers down my spine. Not even in my dreams had I imagined that such things could happen here. I was impressed by the high level of protocol, the cleanliness, and the way the deceased were washed. In Pakistan, I had never seen such a system, but I did not know that not everything that glitters is gold. The same was true for Iran's morgue. One day, I arrived at work very early. Normally, I would leave for the morgue after 8 a.m., but that day, I woke up at Fajr, pre-dawn prayer time. I felt an unusual restlessness at home. My heart was uneasy for no reason. I immediately called my family to check on them, and thankfully, everyone was fine. After breakfast, it was already 8 a.m., and I left for work. Strange thoughts filled my mind on the way. I had an ominous feeling that something bad was going to happen. I kept praying to Allah that nothing bad should happen. I was in a foreign country. If I got into trouble, it would be very difficult for me to get out of it. I had no relatives or friends here, and I was not a man who could easily escape a difficult situation. I was a woman, and for a woman, the most challenging task is to step out and earn a living. But I had no choice. I had to support my family no matter what. If I had stayed home out of fear, thinking that I was just a woman and could do nothing, I would never have been able to build myself up or secure my siblings' future. That is why I ignored all fears and moved forward step by step toward the morgue where I worked. At that hour, most people were heading to work, but strangely, no one had arrived at the morgue. I was the first to be on duty. I went straight to the room where we used to rest and removed my burqa, covering myself with a scarf instead. I knew that work would begin shortly. I was completely unaware that the head of the morgue had given a day off to all the staff. I had assumed that, as usual, everyone would come. But I had no idea that Allah was about to reveal a shocking truth to me. I had just sat down in my room when I suddenly heard the voices of men coming from the next room. I couldn't understand exactly what they were talking about, but I could tell they were discussing a woman. Suddenly, curiosity took over me, and I stood up, taking slow steps towards the door of my room, which was locked from the inside. However, the voices from inside the other room were loud enough to be heard outside, and I was struggling to grasp what they were saying. I pressed my ear against the door, trying to listen, but I still couldn't make out their words. Just then, I felt as if someone was approaching the door to open it, so I quickly hid behind the wall. A tall, intimidating man stepped out of the room and walked away. My heart started pounding with fear at the sight of him. I had no idea who he was or why he had come out of that room. Men were not allowed inside the mortuary, but his presence there made me suspicious. I returned to the door and noticed that the man who had just left hadn't locked it from inside. The door was slightly ajar. Gathering my courage, I peeked through the gap, and the sight before me made the ground beneath my feet vanish. I felt like my soul was about to leave my body. A scream was about to escape my lips, but I quickly covered my mouth with my hands to suppress it. My eyes, wide with terror, fixated on the horrifying scene inside. I had always praised this Iranian mortuary, but now my perspective had completely changed. I had realized this was not a safe place at all. I needed to leave immediately and go back home. Just as I turned around to leave, I found myself face to face with the same tall man. His bloodshot eyes were staring directly at me, sending a shiver down my spine. It felt as if my body had turned to stone, and my heart was on the verge of stopping. I never imagined he would return so quickly. I tried to slip past him and run, but he grabbed my arm and dragged me inside the room. He threw me onto a couch with force. Inside, I saw the mortuary's head supervisor along with 2 other men. There was also a woman lying on a stretcher. Seeing this, my heart nearly stopped. I tried to escape, but the 2 men grabbed me tightly. The supervisor looked at me and asked in a harsh tone, "When I announced that everyone was off duty today, why did you come?" His voice was sharp, making my heart tremble with fear. Stammering, I replied, "Sir, I wasn't feeling well yesterday, so I didn't come to work. That's why I didn't know you had given everyone a day off. I'll leave right now." The moment I finished speaking, a loud, eerie laughter filled the room. One of the men sneered and said, "Do you think we are fools? Do you think we will let you walk out of here alive after what you just saw? You have discovered our biggest secret. We cannot allow you to leave. We will deal with you once we finish our work." Hearing this, my entire body froze with fear. My mother's warnings before I came to Iran started echoing in my mind. She had tried to instill fear in me about going to a foreign country, but back then, I was only thinking about my siblings' future. Now, sitting here, I regretted everything. Tears filled my eyes as I begged them, folding my hands in desperation. "Please, let me go. I swear I won't tell anyone. I will never speak a word about this. Have mercy on me, for the sake of God." But they were like pharaohs, merciless. If they could commit such shameful acts with deceased women, who knew what they were capable of doing to me? The thought alone made my heart nearly burst with terror. Once again, I tried to escape, but the two men had such a tight grip on me that I couldn't even move. They immediately chained me up and threw me into a corner, saying, "We'll finish our work first, then we'll take care of you." Hearing this, my whole body trembled in fear. I kept praying to Allah, pleading for His help. I swore to leave this job and return to Pakistan forever, even if it meant earning less money. But despite my prayers, my situation didn't change. What I saw next made my screams impossible to contain. The men had turned into complete monsters. No one had any sympathy for the innocent girl lying on the stretcher. They were cutting her body apart with their tools, removing her heart and kidneys. Blood was everywhere. I had always been terrified of blood, and seeing so much of it made my condition even worse. My vision blurred, and I began losing consciousness. I don't remember when exactly I passed out. When I woke up in the evening, I found myself in a room where there was no sign of another human being. The entire room was pitch black, with all the furniture and walls painted black. I immediately jumped to my feet, looking around in fear. The horrifying events from the morning replayed in my mind like a film. Step by step, I walked toward a window and tried to look outside. There was a vast lawn with lush green grass and a swimming pool on the side. I was definitely inside someone's house. Realizing this sent shivers down my spine. I had no idea what was going to happen to me now. In the morning, they had said they would kill me, but instead of doing that, they had brought me to an unknown location. I frantically started feeling along the walls, searching for any way to escape. But no matter how much I searched, I found nothing. Finally, exhausted and terrified, I sat in a corner, burying my head in my knees as I sobbed uncontrollably. I was cursing my fate, wondering why I had ended up in this nightmare. I had simply been doing my job, but now I was trapped in an unimaginable situation. As I wept, memories of my family came rushing back. My mother's words of caution replayed in my mind, but it was too late. I was trapped in a nightmare from which escaping seemed impossible. Just then, I heard the sound of a door opening, and I felt someone approaching me. My entire body tensed. I lifted my head and saw a well-dressed man standing before me. He appeared to be around 30 years old and was strikingly handsome. He knelt before me, his eerie green eyes fixated on me. There was a terrifying intensity in his gaze that sent chills down my spine. In a deep, commanding voice, he said, "You should have never come to Iran. Innocent girls like you belong in Pakistan. Working in a foreign country is not meant for people like you. Now look, sitting idly. You've fallen into a disaster. If people in Pakistan found out about your situation, that you were in a stranger's house at this moment, what would be left of your honor? You wouldn't be able to show your face to anyone. But don't worry, this news will never reach Pakistan. However, what you saw today was a serious mistake. This work is something we never reveal to anyone, and it's done in complete secrecy. But now that you know our secret, you must die. But your face is so innocent that I don't feel like killing you. Instead, I feel like doing something else with you. Would you like to be with me?" The voice of that well-dressed man had such a hypnotic charm that I found myself completely captivated. I stared at him as if I had lost all sense of my surroundings. I didn't even fully hear what he had said. I was just lost in his face. His eyes were mesmerizing, yet the horror in them terrified me. I couldn't comprehend his words. He asked me something else, but I didn't respond. I just kept staring at him in silence. Perhaps he realized that I wasn't listening to anything he was saying. only looking at him in awe. He suddenly gave a side smile, revealing a dimple on his cheek. I was observing every little detail about him. As he leaned toward me, I finally snapped back to reality. In a hushed, whispering voice near my ear, he said, "I may look handsome, but I'm not as charming as I appear. Don't trust me, girl, or you will regret it." Once again, his voice entranced me, but I forced myself to stay in control. I asked him, "Who are you people? And why are you doing this?" Hearing my question, he immediately moved back and looked at me seriously. He replied, "We are part of a mafia gang, and we run a mortuary. When a woman's body arrives here, we extract all of its organs and sell them to other countries. What you saw this morning was exactly that. If I hadn't arrived in time, you would have been killed right then and there. But God must have wanted to save you, and by chance, I happened to be there. But don't think I will let you go. Now that you know our secret, you will stay with us. Killing someone is not difficult for me, but for some reason, there's something about you that is stopping me from pulling the trigger. That's why you will stay with me and work for me." Hearing this, I completely lost control. I stood up and declared, "I would rather die than work for you. If you feel drawn to me, then help me instead. Send me back to Pakistan. I swear I won't say a word to anyone about you." The man burst into laughter and said, "You are an innocent little bird. You will now remain in my captivity forever." With those words, he left the room, and I felt like the ground had vanished beneath my feet. What kind of nightmare had I fallen into? First, the horror at the mortuary, and now, being trapped in a place I knew nothing about. My body trembled with fear, and I had no idea what would happen to me next. The day passed, and the next morning, the same well-dressed man entered the room again. His voice had a spellbinding effect on me. I was getting lost in it, forgetting everything else. I found myself constantly thinking about him, and strangely, I started to enjoy it. Time passed, and I remained confined in that dark room. Sometimes, I was allowed to walk outside in the lawn with him, but he would always bring me back to the room. Often, he even let me speak to my mother and siblings, yet I couldn't understand his motives. Slowly, I was falling for him, but I knew I could never spend my life with him. The work he was involved in was wrong, and I could never be a part of it. I knew that whatever step I took would be dangerous, but I had to do something to bring these people to justice. One day, I carefully planned my escape. I pretended to be affectionate towards him and convinced him to take me outside. At first, he refused, insisting that I must stay in the room. But my persistence wore him down, and he finally agreed. I had understood that he had feelings for me, and I used that to my advantage. I knew I was about to put myself through immense difficulty, but I had no other choice. I had to return to Pakistan. If I didn't act now, I would never be able to escape. As soon as I was outside, I skillfully distracted him, creating a diversion that allowed me to disappear without him realizing where I had gone. I ran straight to an Iranian police station. The law here was strict, and no one was given mercy. At the police station, I narrated everything from beginning to end, revealing every detail of the horrific organ trafficking operation. I begged them to send me back to Pakistan. The authorities immediately raided the location where the illegal activities were taking place. The entire facility was shut down, and the house where the well-dressed man lived was also taken into custody. He was arrested. With great respect, the authorities sent me back to Pakistan. But even after returning home, my mind was still fixated on that man. One day, as I sat talking to my mother, the doorbell rang. When I opened the door, a man stood there holding a bouquet and a card. The flowers were black. I was puzzled. Who had sent them? When I opened the card, my heart nearly stopped. It read, "I will be coming to you soon, my innocent little bird." So, dear friends, this was my story today. I hope you liked it. If you enjoyed the story, please like it, share it with your friends, and if you haven't subscribed to my channel, Miracle of Islam, do so now. And don't forget to press the bell icon so you receive notifications of my future stories. Fi Amanillah.